Hi, my name is Sam, and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite comics of all time, one of my favorite artists of all time, and a book that you probably do not have in your collection, and something that you probably need to add to your collection. That is going to be Wolverine Blood Hungry. All right, we got Wolverine Blood Hungry. Like I was saying, this is one of my favorite, if not my favorite Wolverine book of all time, and one of my favorite artists of all time. So we got Sam Kieth as the artist here, Peter David as the writer. We have a couple of lettering guys here, and then as well as a couple colorists. Now, I would assume that is the case because, you know, this was originally released across a couple of the Marvel Presents. So it was 95 through 92. So this is just kind of a collected version of that. This is the first printing. It's not a super expensive book. You can get it around $15 to $20. There is another version of this, I believe, but this is completely out of print. You cannot get it anywhere else besides those original issues. And like I said, I believe it's just the two collected, this one and the other printing that they had done, just the two printings. First thing right away that I like and dislike about this cover. I really like the lettering treatment that's on it, and I like the design. However, I think that maybe this should have been flip-flopped a little bit. Maybe this should have been Wolverine and this should have been Cyber, because to me, if you were to go into a comic book store and maybe this was your first comic, you might be confused that this is Wolverine. You know, it's a guy with a very similar mask, a very similar looking face, also has claws on his fingers. You could see the confusion there maybe for a new reader. And as well, I think that the coloring on this isn't the greatest. It doesn't really pop off the rack. This certainly does with the contrast with the black. Everything else about this, I think it's not a good color treatment for a cover. It's too dark. Go ahead and get into this. This page is pretty cool. One of the things that I think is kind of odd about it is how he's setting the scene and is putting the ship up at the top with the water. If he would have took these panels and moved them up and then moved the ship down here, or maybe had the ship have a splash page here setting the tone and establish shot, ship on the water, and then on the next page we would have our story kind of going in here. Todd McFarlane establishment, you know, you would see in like Spawn or something like that, for example. Yeah, I just thought it was just weird how the ship was at the top. You would think that gravity and everything like that, it just makes more sense with it being down towards the bottom of the page, but that's just me. You can just tell that, yep, this is good old Sam Kieth. Just feral as all hell, just demolish that wolf. He's hungry, so he's gotta eat, you know? But he'll let the cub go. This is something that I really like about the way that Sam Kieth draws Wolverine, is the amount of hair that's on him. The hairdo as well, you know, he should be a hairy guy. He's more or less an animal, right? So put some fur on him. This is something, Sam Kieth does this in the Max a lot as well, where the proportions may look different in other pages. So in some instances it'll be like, oh, you have the Max and he looks ginormous, and then in the next shot he'll be sitting in the world's smallest chair. You know what I mean? I'm not too sure what's going on there with the Max, but you do see some of that really come into play. One of the reasons why I love this comic so much, it is an early 90s book, but it still has that late to mid 80s kind of feel and coloring to it. It's not crazy bright with the the digital coloring, and it still has like the drawing styles in it. You still see that Sam Kieth 90s come out a little bit, especially when Cyber starts getting into the story a little bit more. Overall, it has more of an 80s feel than a 90s feel to this book, and I think that's why it really sticks out, especially for the time that it had come out. See a lot of those Max things kind of coming out. I don't know what you would call this, like Native American stuff that he does on his borders. You see what I'm getting at though. It's very interesting. This is cool, him kind of climbing up the lettering. Yeah, it's pretty crazy how much of the Max you actually see in this book when you actually go back and look at it. I really don't care for this page too much. I think it's a little busy. This section right here especially, it's hard to read. There's a lot going on and too many panels in random spots. Great example of the contrast with the pinks on the blue. The lettering really makes it pop out. Cannot go understated with the lettering and the coloring treatment that's been done on this. It's really good. Like I said, it reminds me of late 80s more than anything. But you see here, you get some of that 90s flair, crazy looking. Sam Kieth too, when he got into, you know, comics, his cartooning definitely stayed. I think that especially these dudes that came around in the 90s, as their career went on, their art more or less started to all look the same. So your Jim Lees and your Rob Liefelds, you know, they kind of mix together. If you were to show somebody who, you know, isn't very well versed in comic books, especially the comic book art, you could probably hand them a Jim Lee comic and a Rob Liefeld comic, and they probably wouldn't be able to tell the difference, right, in terms of the art. This is the kind of stuff that sets Sam Kieth apart, as, you know, just like the cartooning that's done in these faces, you know, the over exaggerations of everything that he does. Not a lot of people utilize during this time. This is very Sin City. Kind of looks like a Space Ghost a bit there, and the cowl in the face. Yep, that beautiful Sam Kieth just coming through there with this. So here we go with Wolverine going through a drug trip, like the fat beer belly that they put on him. One of the things that I can say about this paper is that it is super glossy. I mean, it's high quality, but it is way more glossier than what it probably should be. It's almost like, you know, one of those like magazine stock. It's so glossy. It gives off such a glare when you try to read it, even in person. It's crazy how much it glares off the page. Yeah, look at this, it's cartooning. Crazy good. And I'm pretty sure in about every single panel we've seen Wolverine without a mask on. He doesn't even look the same. Different faces every single panel. It do be like that sometimes though. Oscar Mayer car going. You can see this is one of my favorite books. It's just because there's just so much nonsense that's in here. It's like you hand this book to somebody and they're like, oh, Wolverine Blood Hungry, you know, that sounds badass, and they get in here and it's like, what is going on? It's a dude in drag racing, Wolverine in an Oscar Mayer mobile, you know? It's pretty funny. I just realized that it's just like a big dick contest, pretty much. It's so ridiculous. It's kind of cool, you know, they're talking to each other and sending a message across with the paper airplane. I think it's a little weird having those pages side by side. Maybe if you had put in like a neutral page here to kind of split that up, put in more talking here, and then, you know, split these two pages apart. It's kind of distracting having the same exact thing side by side that close. I love these undershots that he does. Man, if you cannot see the max in this, I don't even know what to tell you. It's just, look at how big he looks there. Just the muscles. I'm not too sure what's going on with his abs there, but it looks fucking cool though, right? That's all that matters. It looks fucking cool. Yeah, her pistol looks like Arnold's pistol from Terminator with that ridiculous ass scope on it. Looks more like a rat than a cat. That nose is jacked on that thing. Sticking out way too far. Cool effects. It's pretty interesting though how there's 3 lettering jobs done on this by different people. They're all pretty, you know, coherent with each other. So you definitely can't really tell that there was other people, you know, doing the task, which is pretty cool on their part. When I just realized this, his image is kind of coming up, shifting over. I'm not doing it over on this side, but that's kind of cool. Interesting. Again, just love the colors in this. One of my favorite pages, just the cartooning in here. You can tell that he's not taking this serious, and he knows we're making comic books here. Let's get cartoony, you know? This looks like something you would see in Mad. All this like lettering all bunched up like that. Letter massing, I guess would be the correct term. Interesting little like action lines coming off his face there. Don't know how I feel about that, but they're cool looking. What do you guys think of when you see artists do this where they just leave, you know, like the teeth or the eyes and the rest is kind of blacked out? My mind goes to Ditko right away. And of course Miller, but Ditko probably is going to be the #1 that sticks out to me. I'd like to see them utilize pages like this a little more. As you can see that a lot of these pages are pretty busy. So having a more negative space like this, it's a good page to read, kind of freshen it up a little bit. Coloring on this, beautiful, great job. Love this panel. Showdown happening here with Cyber and Wolverine, finally. Talked about this in previous episodes, but I love seeing how different people draw rain. This is a good way to draw some rain. Definitely a fucking badass Wolverine image. I don't know how, I never noticed that before, but he had little pupils. I don't know how I feel about that. Probably should have just left this completely red. Makes it look kind of strange now that I see it. I'll never be able to unsee that now. So if you guys never noticed that and you don't like it, I do apologize. Again, with the Native American stuff going on here at the panel. I'm not too sure what's up with that with Sam Keith. I never really looked into it much. I always just thought that was just something that maybe he had done just to kind of set himself apart, which obviously is clearly the case, but where did that actually come from? You know what I mean? It's beautiful cartoon in here. Smacking into that windshield. This too, just insane. Get his ass. This always looks like, oh, what the hell? It's that dude from Crash Bandicoot. I can't remember what his name is, but the kangaroo character, that's always who that reminded me of. Also used the lettering to show motion. Pretty interesting, and we'll see that very often. When in doubt and you don't want to draw it, you black it out, folks. That's the #1 rule in comic book drawing. All right, well, that's gonna be Wolverine Blood Hungry. We just did a quick little flip through, touched on some things that I felt were pretty interesting as we went through this book. Like I said, this is probably my favorite Wolverine book of all time. You can still pull it off eBay, Amazon resell pretty often. I see it floating around. It's not scarce at all. However, like I said, this is out of print, so as time goes on, this is only going to get pricier and pricier. And who knows, at some point, Marvel might do a reprint of this. I'm not entirely sure what Sam Keith's, issue is with his books. Like Max doesn't get reprinted. He doesn't bother doing that. His stuff and this doesn't get seen reprint. There's an Aliens story that he had done that got reprinted recently, and I have that. Not too sure. Hopefully we get to see some more Sam Keith come around. Like I said, Wolverine Blood Hungry. Go out, pick it up if you already don't have it. It's the best one. As always, folks, thanks for hanging out and talking comics. Have a good rest of your day.